Hi, everybody in middle school, 5th through 8th grade. I'm going to try to be fairly quick to make this a shorter video and give a little bit of information about our project that we're working on, which is this research assignment that today we're going to start making into a Google slideshow. Now, let's very quickly go over the fact that this is the third week that we are working on this, right? The first week was the week of November 4th, where I asked you to read over everything. A video explained it, and the main goal was to choose topics, and each grade level had a different subject to pick topics through. Last week, November 11th, we took those topics and then watched a video and a little bit of information and tips from me on how to go about doing research to find different things that you needed, where I also gave a research template that looked like this. And a quick side note is that for all the examples, I'm using 5th grade to be consistent, but this really applies to every different grade level. Instead of making a different video for every grade, which is really saying the same thing, I'm using 5th grade as an example, but you look at it and how it applies to your subject and what you're doing for your grade. Then this week and last week also, you were supposed to gather information, start researching, and I said at least try to get halfway through this sheet. It doesn't have to be in order. This is just notes. You're not turning this in, but to keep up and keep current, hopefully you got about halfway or more. Some people I saw did get completed, and that's wonderful. And also noted that any websites that you use in this last row of this chart that's on each of these planning pages, you should be copying and pasting the links of any websites that you use. Now that brings us to today, which is November 18th, our third week of doing this. If you are behind, you are a student who has not done the previous things, I really encourage you to get caught up. Getting caught up at this point is doable. It's a little bit of work. It'll take a little bit of time, but it shouldn't be a big problem. I would really not want to see anybody wait till this last week and wait and save it till then, or not have gotten started, not have gotten work done. So this week, number one, I'm not going to go over it again because it's independent work based on what we already said, but you should finish that research and get all of the information, all of the research that you need done in order to start making the slideshow. Um, what I'm going to do for the rest of this video is give you a model of a good Google slideshow and then a little help getting started, especially for those of you who are newer to Google Slides. If you've had me and have made something with Google Slides before, it's really using the same basic techniques and doing it the best way you can. So I am going to be fairly brief. I'm going to give the basics of working with Google Slides today, and then next week a few advanced or other tips and instruction on working with Google Slides. Now the first thing is, and I had some people asking this from the first week, how many slides do you need? Well, what I planned on doing, the reason that I didn't put that out in the first week, is I made up a document that is linked to the Google Classroom assignment for today. It is view only because you don't need to do anything on this document. It's for reference of exactly what goes on each slide. Now, if we look at the example again for 5th grade, but each grade is on here, it gives you a sample of which slide it is and what should go on each slide. They all start and end the same way, and that should be the same for every student. Everybody's first slide should be a title slide, and we'll take a look at what that means in just a bit. And everybody's last slide should be the works cited slide. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about that today, but all that really means is making one final slide that shows which websites you used. It just has those links for the websites that you used, a little bit of formatting, background, a title at the top, but that's going to be your works cited slide that just basically means here are the websites I used to get my information. Then, in the middle, it shows what you can put on each slide. So for 5th grade right here, I have slides 2 through 7, right, in between slides 1 and 8, and what can go on each slide. Now, if you choose to do more than this, you can. This gives like a minimum or what you should be able to do. If you decide, say in 5th grade, that you have more information that you want to put onto a slide 8, and this becomes slide 9. If you want to put another one and put in a slide 9 and this becomes slide 10, that's fine. You can always do more. You can add things. But this is to be helpful to tell you, okay, here is what goes on each slide. And for each grade, it breaks it up exactly according to this document right here, the planning page. So it shouldn't be a mystery. It shouldn't be, oh, I don't know if I have the same information that I need to put into these slides, because it's taken directly from here. All it's really doing is taking this, which was the research planning page, and saying, now create those on individual slides. For some of the classes, it goes exactly in order and has the same exact things. For some classes, I did combine one or two in maybe two different parts of this page that would fit well in one slide, but it's still all the same information that you're just putting it into a slideshow format. So, what does a good Google slideshow looks at? Well, I'm going to use one as a model. Okay, a model of one that I have made for a sample, say, research project for a country, the country of Russia. I'm not going to read every word to you. I'm going to go through it kind of quickly, but when we are thinking about a Google slideshow or a slideshow in general, it is not the same thing as writing out documents, paragraphs, writing a report. A slideshow is something visual. So here are some of the things that you want to make sure you do. You want to make sure that you use color, backgrounds, fonts, texts, and images to convey different pieces of information. This is a good example of a title page, or a title slide rather, where it's got a nice background picture, a title, and then a subtitle, which happens to be in this case the person's name, which all of you can do in essentially the same way. You're going to have different pictures, you're going to have different titles, and it's going to be your name, but this is what a good title slide would look like. As I go through and show each of these, you'll notice that on some, there's not much writing. On this one, there's a caption for each of the images, and the images are nice and big and clear and laid out well with a title at the top. This doesn't have any long paragraphs. This doesn't have 10 sentences. This doesn't have 20 bullet points, but it's still conveying a lot of information in a visual way, right? Rather than in a way where we're looking to read a lot. There are some slides where there is or there are some sentences, there is some typing, there is some information, and that's what you need to have. But there aren't any slides here that are filled up with long paragraphs. You're giving the information in bullet points, in a sentence or two, in shorter ways, and using pictures, fonts, colors, backgrounds to accompany that to make a good overall pleasing looking slideshow. All right, this one is probably the slide in this that has the most information, and this is a fine slide, but you wouldn't really want to have more than this. This is about the most amount of information or typing that you'd want to have on a slide, because again, it's very different than a written report. It shows a couple different techniques here if I just pointed them out and going out of order, but this one, it uses just a colored background gradient. This one, it splits it between an image on the left and text on the right. This one, it has the text going over top of the background image, which with a few images over top, but you'll notice all of the text is very visible, is very clear, is very easy to read. When you pick the color of your font and your text choice, you want colors that complement whatever is in the background. If you have darker backgrounds, you want lighter font colors. If you have lighter backgrounds, you want darker font colors, and you want to make sure that's very visible. There's also one other little trick, or it's not so much a trick, but just a technique, that if you have a very busy background with different colors, some light, some dark, there's a way that we can make it where you have some shading in your text box that makes it so that those words, the text, can stand out a little bit better. All right, but this is an example, just a model. Nobody's copying this or doing this exact same thing of what a really well laid out and well done slideshow would look like. And you see it has all of those different components that we talked about. All right, so now I'm not going to walk through every single thing you can do in Google Slides. I'm going to give just a few quick pointers, quick bits of instruction. And that's first how to get to it. And you should all know this by now, but if I just go into any main Google page, I have my app browser right here that I click on, and then there is the app Google Slides. You will not see a blank slideshow or a sample slideshow attached to this Google Classroom assignment. You're going to make it from scratch. So start off with a blank one, and then at the end, when this project is finished, you'll attach this to a Google Classroom assignment to submit it and hand it in. So When I open up Google Slides, the very first thing I want to do is I want to change the title at the top. I could name it something that I'll be able to tell it apart very easily. And for this one, I'm just going to type in research project, or I could type in computer class research project, or computer class project. Okay, you can pick your own, but it needs to be something that tells you what it is. So we start off with a blank slide, but it does give us some text boxes there already. And one of the things that you're going to need to know how to do on every slide is change the background. There's a difference between adding in an image that can be moved around, that can be resized, that can be changed in a couple ways, and the background. When you add in a background, it locks that background so you don't accidentally move the image, you don't wind up with text behind it, as you could have happened if you just added in an image. So to change your background, it's very simple. All you want to do is find a blank area without any objects like pictures or text boxes. This is a text box here, so I don't want to use anything in this space. This is a text box here, so I don't want to use anything in this space. I want to go to a blank area, say for instance anything down here, anything up here, little areas on the side, but I want to pick something that's nice and open. Give a right click, and then there is a change background option in that menu. I said right click. If you're working on a Chromebook, it's holding down that Alt button and clicking. And I just did paste by accident. I wanted to click change background. So you have a couple choices here. You have a color choice where you can do solid colors or gradients. And those are both fine choices. You might want to just think about which color you're using, whether it's lighter or darker, and how that's going to work with text. Or you can choose an image. We went over the information a few weeks ago in adding images into Google Docs, and this is the same exact thing. You can do a Google image search, you may have a saved image in your Google Drive, and whatever you choose to use, you can go and add an image in that way. For this sample, I'm just going to do a gradient background. Let's make it a green gradient background, and I'm going to press done. Now, if I wanted that same thing for every one of my slides, I could have pressed that other button that says Add to Theme, and then it will show up that way for every slide. For my choice, my preference, I like to mix it up a little bit, make it a different background on each slide. But if you wanted to make that a theme that ran between your whole slideshow, that's an option. You could. I'm going to click here and I'm going to give it a title. So I'm just going to title this one Research Slideshow. You would give it a title that fits your topic. It might be a country name, it might be something about the topic that you're doing. And the subtitle by, and then your name. And that gives you basically all that you need for a title slide. Now, you could add in a nice image here. You don't want to add in 10 images on a title slide. You want either a nice big image, maybe a single one, or you could have used an image as the background and then also change around these fonts. And you do that in the same exact way as we talked about in Google Docs. Everybody should know by this point how to go and change fonts, how to go and get more fonts and select a different one for you to use, and how to also change their size and change their color. One thing that I know about teaching kids from using PowerPoint, from using Google Slides for the past, I don't know, let's call it 8 years, is that a lot of times a lot of students leave their fonts too small. You want a font on a slideshow, especially if you have a big open space, to really fill up that space and be nice and big and visible. You don't want small fonts that are hard to read, hard to see. So in any case, I'll change my font around a little bit. I'll change the color, and that's something that you guys should all know and be able to work through on your own. All right. So that's my title slide. Now, the same principle really goes through every slide, and you have that other document that says what should appear on each slide. All that I'm going to show right now is that this plus sign is what adds more slides to your slideshow. Over here in this side panel, you could drag them around to a different order if there was a reason to, if you needed to. You could copy and paste them and duplicate the slides if you needed to. But this is how you add in more slides, and on each one, add in those titles, that text for information, and images, either in a background, single images, or both. The one point that I'm going to make, and this is going to pretty much wrap up today to get you started, is that all text goes through text boxes. Let me delete these text boxes for a second to show you what I mean. If we were in Google Docs and we saw a blank white page in Google Docs, we could just click pretty much in this open area right in here, we could just click and start typing, right? Google Slides, the main difference is that you cannot do that. I have a blank white slide right here, but I have nothing on it. I cannot go and type on this slide. There is nothing that I can type into and have text show up on this slide. Everything is done through objects, and those objects could be text boxes. You can type in those, pretty self-explanatory. You could type on shapes. There are a couple of other things that you can add in that you could type on, but any text that you want to add needs to be done through one of those objects. So, how would we do that if we didn't have a text box? Or you already used one text box, but you needed another? Well, you could do Insert, Text Box, or there's a little shortcut button right here for a text box. You click it, you'll see your mouse pointer changes, and then you go and draw the text box that you want. So here's a text box that I drew for my title, and I'll just say this title is Slide 2. That's for the example. You would think of a better one. And center that, make it bigger, change its font, and this is how you're going to put or you're going to create all of the information, everything that goes into each slide, right? Through those text boxes, through changing the background with that right click or alt click, change background button, and then adding in pictures, images that you either find on the internet, or you could do a Google or a kid search and find those images and paste them into your slideshow in the way that we talked about adding pictures in back when we talked about Google Docs. Same exact thing. All right, so I hope that you get started. I think you guys are going to do very well. A lot of times kids really prefer this over to like a formal written paper in presenting their information this way and making these creations. So you could go ahead and get started. Next week, I might talk about just one or two advanced techniques, a couple tips, a couple of other features of Google Slides, and help hopefully get you guys towards wrapping up this project and having a really nice finished project. As always, email me or post comments if you have questions or need any extra help, and hopefully you do a really nice job.